Hey, let me tell you a story. There was a man named Paul Renner, 45, who used to work night shifts at St. Vincent Psychiatric Hospital in Massachusetts, back when the place still had walls that echoed and lights that hummed like they were tired. He was a nurse, not a doctor, just one of those people who stayed till long after his shift ended, writing reports no one read and cleaning after people no one visited. The hospital closed 12 years ago after a patient hanged himself during transfer, and the building was left to rot until this year, when the state finally decided to sell the property. Paul was asked to return and destroy the remaining records, mostly paper files and a few old tapes that were never digitized. He agreed. It was supposed to be one night. No big deal. He needed the extra pay and maybe, deep down, some kind of closure. He arrived just before sunset. The gates were still locked with the same chain, rusted now, but he had the old key from when he worked here. The metal creaked like a voice remembering its own name. Inside the lobby, everything was covered in a fine layer of dust. Wheelchairs left in hallways, peeling green paint, broken glass crunching under his boots. He switched on his flashlight, though he knew the place by memory. The nurse's station, the east ward, the isolation rooms, all of it still there, frozen like a body that never got buried. The smell was the same too, disinfectant mixed with mold and something metallic that never left the walls. He carried two boxes of matches and a small metal bin for burning the papers. It was supposed to be simple. He'd start in Ward C, finish before midnight, and leave. But as he walked deeper into the corridor, he heard a faint electric buzz, like an old wire humming somewhere above him. Impossible. The power was cut years ago. Yet one of the red emergency lights near the ceiling blinked once, then went dark again. Paul tried to ignore it. Maybe some leftover charge. He found the office labeled archives. The door had been forced open long ago. Inside were rows of cabinets and a reel-to-reel recorder sitting on a desk. He set the bin on the floor, opened the first drawer. Patient files, yellowed, labeled by hand. He lit a match and started burning them slowly. The smoke curled like old breath. After the second drawer, he found a small cardboard box with tapes inside, each labeled with date and patient number, except one, marked only with a name. His name, Paul Renner. He froze. His hand trembled just slightly. There was no reason for that tape to exist. He had never been a patient. He'd been staff. He picked it up. It was dusty but intact. He looked at the real recorder, then at the dark window, and laughed under his breath, talking to himself like old habits die hard. Probably a mistake. Maybe one of the doctors used his name as a placeholder. But curiosity is louder than reason when you're alone. He threaded the tape through the machine, turned the knob, and pressed play. Static filled the room, then a voice, low, slow, and familiar. It was his voice, or at least it sounded like him. The recording said, Session 1. Patient shows signs of recurring guilt. Unable to differentiate between memory and imagination. Subject believes he is staff, not patient. He blinked, listening harder. His voice on the tape continued, describing things he had done, names he recognized, nurses he worked with, patients who had died, but twisted, as if he had been responsible for their deaths. He stopped the tape. Silence pressed against his ears. The building felt smaller, tighter. He tried to laugh again, but it came out as a dry breath. He muttered, Someone's joke. Someone dubbed my voice. He pulled the tape out. But when he looked at it under the light, there were fresh fingerprints on the plastic. Not his. He turned off the flashlight, stood still, listening. Somewhere down the hall something tapped twice, like a cane or metal against tile. He whispered, Hello. His voice sounded swallowed by the corridor. No answer, just the quiet hum of wires that shouldn't hum. He told himself he was tired, that it was just nerves. He took a deep breath, went back to burning the papers, one file at a time. But as he reached for the next batch, he noticed one folder left open on the floor. Inside, a form labeled Patient Evaluation. Name, Paul Renner. Diagnosis, dissociative psychosis. He stepped back, his pulse hit his ears. The paper was yellowed but the ink looked fresh. Still dark, no dust. He touched it, and the page felt warm. He backed toward the door and tripped on something metal. The intercom speaker that used to be mounted above the desk had fallen. The wire still connected, hanging like a vein, and from it came a faint sound, a whisper, distant but clear. It said, "Paul, you shouldn't have left." His hand shook. He unplugged the wire, but the sound kept playing. The whisper turned into breathing, the slow inhale and exhale of someone standing very close. The bin fire flickered higher. He looked around and caught a reflection in the glass cabinet, not behind him, but to his side. A shape in white scrubs, walking past the doorway. He rushed to the hall, shining the light both ways. Nothing there, just silence and dust hanging in the air like smoke. He went back in, turned off the recorder, grabbed his bag, and told himself he'd finish tomorrow. But when he tried to leave, the hallway light blinked again. This time longer, steady, like a pulse, and the intercom on the far wall clicked. A different voice now, a woman, calm, professional, she said. "Nurse Renner, please return to Ward C for final check." That was the old code phrase they used before a patient transfer. No one outside the staff would know it. His stomach tightened, his mouth went dry. He looked toward the Ward C hallway, dark and open like a mouth, and for a second he thought he saw someone standing at the end, not moving, just waiting. He whispered, "Not tonight, not again," but his feet started moving anyway, slow steps echoing off the tiles, one after another, until the door of Ward C creaked open on its own. The door of Ward C opened slow. The hinges let out that long cry he used to hear every night shift. Paul stood still, the flashlight trembling in his hand. He remembered how this ward was always colder, even when the heating worked. The patients here were the ones no one wanted to see after dark, the ones that whispered to walls and counted their own teeth. He walked inside, his boots sliding on old tile. The smell hit him first, damp and chemical, like time had tried to clean itself but failed. The light caught faded names painted on doors, room numbers scratched out. In the distance a single bulb flickered. He reached the nurse station. The phone on the counter was off the hook, swaying slowly like someone had just set it down. He picked it up, listened. Nothing at first, then a soft crackle, followed by his own voice saying you were supposed to stay. He dropped the receiver. It swung back and forth, tapping against the desk. He whispered, "This isn't real." But the hall ahead answered with a click, one of the room doors unlocking by itself. Room 9. He felt the air change, heavier, almost warm. The smell of bleach stronger now. He pushed the door open with the flashlight. Inside was an empty bed, restraints still hanging, a chair, a cabinet, and a small mirror on the wall. It was cracked down the middle. On the desk was a folder, clean, no dust, labeled Session 09. He opened it. The first page read patient shows limited insight, repeats same events nightly, believes he is staff returning after closure. Paul stared at it, his throat locked. He said, "This isn't mine. This can't be." Behind him the intercom crackled again, the same woman's voice, calm and soft. She said, "He's responding. Keep observing." Paul turned. The speaker above the door blinked red once, then green. His flashlight dimmed. He shook it, hit it against his hand. The batteries were new. He tried to leave but the door shut. Loud, metal echo filling the room. He slammed it, pulled, nothing. His breath got shallow. The intercom came alive again. A man's voice this time, same tone he used to have when giving reports. It said patient shows signs of agitation. Believes he's trapped. Paul shouted, "Who is this?" But the voice kept going. Patient is becoming violent. Possible self-harm risk. He turned in circles, scanning the room. The mirror caught his light. For a moment, he thought it showed another face. Not his. Eyes wider, older. The reflection moved slightly out of sync, then smiled. A slow, tired smile that didn't belong to him. He stepped back, hit the bed frame. The sound of metal echoed like laughter. He looked down and saw initials carved into the side rail. PR. He had done that years ago during a night shift. Bored, marking the bed he always used for rest. He froze, remembering that night, the overdose, the screaming, the white flashes, and then nothing. He remembered being found on the floor with an empty vial. He had told everyone he just fainted, that the meds were mislabeled. But what if that wasn't the truth? The intercom whispered again, softly, almost kindly, "You never left. You just changed uniforms." Paul covered his ears, shaking his head. "No, I left. I left." He grabbed the metal chair and threw it at the mirror. It shattered into a dozen pieces, but in each shard the same thing stared back. His own reflection sitting on the bed, wrists bound, motionless. He backed into the corner. The fire from the office must have spread, because he could smell smoke creeping under the door. But instead of panic, a strange calm came over him, like something inside accepted it. He heard footsteps outside, slow and rhythmic, someone approaching, keys jingling. The handle turned. The door opened just enough for light to pour in, and a silhouette appeared wearing the same white uniform he had on, holding a clipboard, the face hidden by shadow. The figure said, "It's time for your discharge." Paul whispered, "I'm not a patient." The figure stepped closer, revealing his own face, pale, expressionless. Same eyes, same scar on the jaw. His own voice said, "You were and you still are." The lights blinked once, twice, then everything went dark except for the red exit sign glowing faintly. Footsteps again, closer this time, then nothing. Silence that pressed into his ears. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. When he opened his eyes, he was standing outside. Morning light cutting through fog. Birds somewhere far away. His car was parked in the same place. The gate half open, he walked toward it. The sky pale gray. The wine carrying a low hum like power lines. He reached for his keys, but they weren't there. Only a folded note in his pocket. Same handwriting as the files. It said patient discharge. Status pending observation. He looked back at the building. The top floor windows dark, except one. Ward C, room 9, where a faint red light blinked behind the glass. He got in his car, started the engine, tried to breathe steady. The radio came on by itself, white noise at first, then the woman's voice again, calm as before. She said, "Nurse Renner, please return to Ward C for final check." His hands froze on the wheel. The engine idled. The sound of static grew sharper, like breathing right behind his ear. He turned off the radio, but the voice stayed, repeating softly, "You never left. You never left." His reflection in the rearview mirror smiled faintly before he did, and the car headlights flashed once as if signaling the building. If you ever drive past St. Vincent Hospital, don't stop. Some echoes never fade. They just wait for someone who still remembers their name. Subscribe for more stories like this.